She told her hairstylist, "I'm going to put pills in his drinks so I can go through his phone while getting her hair done." The stylist texted me immediately. "We've been friends since high school. I got blood tests, filed charges, and had her arrested. She lost her job and her apartment." I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am at 2 a.m., still processing everything that's happened in the past week. My world turned upside down thanks to a text message from someone I hadn't spoken to in months. It started last Tuesday morning. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a message from Jake, my buddy from high school who now works as a hairstylist downtown. We'd kept in touch sporadically over the years, mostly through social media likes and the occasional happy birthday message. His text made my blood run cold. Jake told me he needed to talk to me immediately about something involving my wife. He said she'd been in his chair that morning, and during her appointment, she'd casually mentioned her plan to slip pills into my drinks so she could go through my phone while I was unconscious. She'd laughed about it like it was some harmless prank between girlfriends. My first instinct was disbelief. My wife of 6 years wouldn't do something like that. We'd had our ups and downs like any couple, but drugging someone? That crossed every line imaginable. Yet Jake's voice message was dead serious, and he'd never been one for drama or lies. The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. For the past 3 months, I'd been experiencing weird episodes after dinner. I'd feel incredibly drowsy, almost drugged, and would pass out completely on the couch or in bed. I'd wake up groggy and disoriented, sometimes finding my phone moved from where I'd left it. When I mentioned feeling unusually tired to my wife, she'd suggest I was working too hard or needed better sleep habits. I'd even gone to my doctor about the fatigue, worried something was seriously wrong with my health. The blood tests came back normal, and he suggested stress management. Now I understood why my wife had been so supportive of those doctor visits, even offering to drive me to appointments. Jake agreed to meet me after work that day. He looked uncomfortable but determined as he recounted exactly what my wife had said. She'd been getting her roots touched up and apparently felt chatty with her hairstylist. She'd complained about me being secretive with my phone lately and joked about how she'd found the perfect solution. She'd mentioned getting the pills from her sister, who worked in healthcare, and how easy it was to slip them into my evening beer or coffee. The casual way she'd discussed drugging her own husband had horrified Jake enough to reach out to me immediately. He'd known us both since high school and felt obligated to warn me, even though it meant potentially destroying our marriage. I spent that night lying in bed next to my wife, watching her sleep peacefully while my mind raced. She looked so innocent, so normal. How long had she been doing this? What had she found on my phone? Was this about the work messages I'd been getting from a female colleague, or something else entirely? The next morning, I called in sick to work and went straight to my doctor's office. I explained the situation and requested immediate blood and urine tests. The medical staff took it seriously once I mentioned suspected drugging. They drew multiple vials and promised to rush the toxicology screening. While waiting for results, I started paying closer attention to my wife's behavior. That evening, she made dinner as usual and brought me a beer while I watched TV. I pretended to drink it, but secretly poured most of it into a plant when she wasn't looking. Sure enough, she seemed disappointed when I remained alert and active throughout the evening. The blood tests came back positive for benzodiazepines, specifically lorazepam, a powerful sedative. The levels in my system indicated I'd been drugged within the past 48 hours. My doctor was alarmed and insisted I contact law enforcement immediately. I spent Friday morning at the police station filing a report. The detective assigned to my case took it seriously, especially given the documented evidence from my medical tests. She explained that drugging someone without their consent was a felony, regardless of the relationship between victim and perpetrator. The detective advised me to maintain normal behavior while they gathered more evidence. She suggested setting up a camera in our living room to potentially catch my wife in the act. The thought of surveilling my own home felt surreal, but I agreed. That weekend was the longest of my life. My wife acted completely normal, chatting about her week, asking about mine, even suggesting we plan a vacation together. Meanwhile, I was documenting everything and coordinating with law enforcement. Monday evening, everything came to a head. My wife brought me my usual after-dinner coffee, and I pretended to drink it while secretly recording on my phone. Within an hour of me supposedly falling unconscious on the couch, she quietly retrieved my phone from my pocket and began scrolling through it. The hidden camera captured everything, her checking my messages, looking through my photos, even attempting to access apps I kept locked. She spent nearly 2 hours going through my entire digital life while believing I was drugged unconscious. Tuesday morning, I met with the detective again and handed over the video evidence. Combined with Jake's testimony, my medical records, and the recorded footage, they had enough for an arrest warrant. The arrest happened at her workplace on Wednesday afternoon. I wasn't present, But according to the detective, my wife seemed genuinely shocked that her actions constituted a crime. She'd apparently believed that being married gave her the right to access my phone by any means necessary. The charges were serious: assault with a controlled substance, illegal possession of prescription drugs, and domestic abuse. Her sister, who'd allegedly provided the pills, was also under investigation. Update 1. The fallout happened quickly. My wife's employer terminated her immediately after learning about the criminal charges. Her job in finance required a clean record and high-security clearance, both of which were now compromised. She'd worked there for 8 years and had recently been promoted to a senior position. Without her income, she couldn't afford our shared apartment. I'd moved in with Jake temporarily while everything was sorted out legally. My wife had to break the lease and move back in with her parents across town. Her entire life unraveled within a week of her arrest. Her family initially blamed me for overreacting and destroying her future over a misunderstanding. They claimed she was just trying to save our marriage by checking if I was cheating. When I pointed out that drugging someone is a felony regardless of motivation, they finally began to grasp the severity of her actions. The most disturbing revelation came during her court-mandated psychological evaluation. The therapist discovered this wasn't an impulsive decision. My wife had been planning and executing this for months. She'd researched different drugs, tested dosages, and kept detailed notes about my reactions. What I'd experienced as occasional weird drowsiness was actually a calculated pattern of abuse. She'd convinced herself that I was having an affair based on completely innocent work interactions. Rather than communicating her concerns or seeking couples counseling, she'd chosen to drug me repeatedly and violate my privacy. The therapist noted signs of obsessive behavior and paranoid thinking that went far beyond normal relationship insecurities. Update 2. The legal proceedings moved faster than expected. Faced with overwhelming evidence, my wife's lawyer advised her to accept a plea deal rather than risk trial. She pleaded guilty to assault with a controlled substance and received 18 months probation, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order preventing contact with me. Her sister faced separate charges for illegally distributing prescription medication. Apparently, she'd been taking pills from the hospital where she worked and giving them to family members for various purposes. The investigation expanded beyond just my case. Jake became something of a hero in this whole situation. His quick thinking and moral courage prevented months more of abuse. He'd risked getting involved in a messy situation between people he'd known for years, but he felt compelled to protect me. Our renewed friendship has been one of the few positive outcomes from this nightmare. The divorce papers were filed immediately after her conviction. Given the criminal nature of her actions, the proceedings were straightforward. I kept most of our shared assets, and she waived any claim to alimony given her legal troubles. The hardest part has been processing the betrayal emotionally. This wasn't a moment of poor judgment. It was months of calculated abuse by someone who claimed to love me. She'd watched me worry about my health, seen me visit doctors and take medical tests, all while knowing she was the cause of my symptoms. Update 3. It's been 6 months since everything happened, and I'm finally starting to feel normal again. The physical effects of the drugging stopped immediately, but the psychological impact took longer to heal. I went through a period of hypervigilance about food and drinks, constantly worried about being drugged again. Therapy helped me understand that what happened wasn't my fault. I'd done nothing wrong by having normal professional relationships with colleagues. My ex-wife's paranoia and criminal response were her choices, not inevitable results of my behavior. Jake and I have maintained our renewed friendship. He still feels guilty about not speaking up sooner, but I've assured him he did exactly the right thing. Without his intervention, who knows how long the abuse would have continued or how much worse it might have gotten. My ex-wife completed her probation and mandatory counseling. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard she's struggling to find employment due to her criminal record. She's had to move back home permanently and start over professionally. While I don't wish her harm, I also don't feel responsible for the consequences of her actions. The experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, communication, and recognizing abuse. I'd never considered that domestic violence could take the form of secret drugging. I'd always pictured abuse as obvious physical violence, not subtle poisoning designed to facilitate privacy violations. I'm dating again now, though I'm admittedly more cautious about relationships. I've learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong and to speak up about concerns rather than making excuses for unusual situations. Looking back, there were warning signs I'd dismissed. My ex-wife had always been controlling and suspicious, but I'd attributed it to insecurity rather than recognizing it as potentially dangerous behavior. She'd demanded access to all my social media accounts and passwords early in our relationship, which I'd reluctantly provided to avoid arguments. The whole experience reinforced the importance of maintaining individual boundaries even within marriage. No relationship, regardless of its legal status, gives one person the right to violate another person's autonomy through drugging or other forms of abuse. For anyone reading this who might be experiencing similar situations, trust your instincts. If you're feeling unusually drowsy or finding your belongings moved, consider the possibility that someone might be tampering with your food or drinks. Document everything, seek medical attention, and don't hesitate to involve law enforcement if necessary. Marriage should be built on trust and communication, not surveillance and drugs. My ex-wife destroyed our relationship through her own choices, and she deserves to face the full consequences of those actions. Meanwhile, I'm rebuilding my life with better boundaries and a deeper understanding of what healthy relationships actually look like. The most important thing I've learned is that protecting yourself isn't selfish or vindictive, it's necessary. Sometimes the people closest to us are capable of causing the most harm, and recognizing that reality is the first step towards safety and healing.